Hey everybody, I just got back from an awesome weekend at Retro World Expo in Hartford, Connecticut. You could hear my voice is still a little scratchy from it, and one of the reasons I lost my voice is at one point I tried to get as many of my friends and fellow retro gaming nerds in front of a camera to hang out and do a mini interview of sorts, because I wanted to put something together to make it feel like you were all hanging out there with us. And I always tell people how you really need to go to one of these in person in order to experience it, but not everybody can make it, not everybody can go to everyone. So I just wanted to put together a compilation of basically just me hanging out and chatting with people, hoping that it would make a pretty good podcast for you to listen to. I'm going to break it up into two parts because I did quite a few of these, and everything went right with the first one. There were some audio issues with the second as equipment batteries started to die as the day went on, but I hope that you would all enjoy this. One thing I do have to say is I did not get to everybody, which made me super sad. I tried to hit up all the people that came from a far distance, or at least got on a plane, but I did not get everybody, and that totally bummed me out because there were so many amazing people there that I really wanted to talk to. Also, I did kind of intentionally skip some of my friends in the New York area because I gotta just stop being selfish and instead of hanging out and having fun, stick a camera in their face next time I'm down there. But that was meant as a, not as disrespect, but just as, hey, I'm not going to see any of these other people for maybe another year, so let me go take a drive down and do this with you all in a month or so afterwards. So my love and respect to the New York crew. That is absolutely, no one was intentionally excluded or anything, but the people that I did get to talk to are all awesome. So a shout out to the people I missed. I'm so sorry. Hopefully we could do something together. But let's just start this thing out, and here's the first half of all of the different interviews and fun that I had at Retro World Expo. Mason Conrad, what's up, dude?
What's going on, man? How we doing?
Excellent to finally meet you
Yeah,
in person.
absolutely.
For anybody that doesn't know, anytime you see a thumbnail on RetroRGB that isn't trash, you made it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
I really appreciate it because it's, you've worked a lot with me about there's been more than a handful of times where I was like, dude, I don't even know what this video is about. Will you just watch it and make a thumbnail for me?
Hey, it works. Whatever your flow is, we'll make it work.
Yeah, so much appreciated. But what's your origin story? How'd you start doing all this stuff?
Yeah, so I started doing YouTube in 2012, and I had a Nintendo channel called Nintendo News by Me. I was 14 years old. I was very awkward, and on camera, like I'm more comfortable these days. But back then, I was really socially awkward as a 14-year-old. I just didn't like the idea of being on a camera, but I like the idea of YouTube and media, whatever. I just needed something to do at home. So I was like, okay, I'll make a YouTube channel. So I did that. And the main thing was just Nintendo news as it would happen. I'm just kind of talking, to the camera, what's going on, what did Nintendo do today? But then it got into like, hey, I need some kind of backdrop. So then it got to like me buying things for the backdrop, like posters and stuff that I'm like, oh, it's kind of cool, But I started doing that. And then it started to become me being the collection guy. So then by the end of it, the 8-year stretch, I think I finished in 2019, 2020 maybe, I had a whole backdrop full of I had a Mario Bros. Arcade machine. I had 32 different shelves full of just merchandise, each categorized, but that was kind of my shtick on the channel. Was I just have a massive Mario collection basically.
That's
but
awesome.
in doing that, I gained I like learning. So it's I see people's thumbnails. I watched a lot of Game Explain back in the day. And Dame Drops, Food Guys. I just saw a bunch of different genres of YouTube, but it's how do you stand out on your own? I didn't want to be the guy who at 16 is spending money that I don't have really, besides Taco Bell, to go pay somebody to do thumbnails. So I'm I'll just work with this, see what I got. Started on an iPhone, then I got the MacBook, then I got Photoshop, and then that's really where I started working. But at that point, I gained all the skills for the graphics, for the editing, all that. So once I was done with YouTube, it got to a point where I was like, okay, I need to just, I don't know, do something else. I woke up one day, my goal was 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. Not a great idea because then it puts a cap on me. But more of an achievement than anything, but I saw it as something else. So I'd hit that. I woke up that next day and I'm like, that's done. Now what? What's the new thing? So I basically was like, hey, I'm just gonna do freelance, I guess. If anybody needs things, you've seen what I do on my channel, I'm done with that. Well wishes to that channel, but that's it. I'm done. So if you guys need anything, you can message me, whatever here. And that was when I was still working at Taco Bell. So then a couple people were like, oh, this is interesting. You're doing this now. So one person led to the next, and here we are.
What made you decide to stop doing it? Stop doing YouTube, I mean.
So it got to a point where it's like the whole dead channel thing, you hear about the algorithm. There's no right way to do YouTube, I don't think. But from what I knew, I didn't care enough about the analytics at all. I was trying to hit that goal. It was stupid. Like it was for the wrong reasons, pretty much. But it was like I was a kid, and I just like the idea of having I guess life in Ohio was really boring and dull, and people there are just not my type of people. But the internet is such a more diverse pool of options, So it got to a point where I'm like, okay, well, I can do this and make friends here. But then after so long, I'm like, I just really enjoyed the process. So eventually, I just got to a point where I was like, okay, well, I am not passionate about it anymore. So at that point, I just decided it was over. But
that's cool. I have a hard time letting go of stuff. So it's like if I started a project, like
I'm very
really tough to be like, okay, I'm done. Like, what do you mean I'm done? After all these years, like, what do you mean I'm done?
I think my problem was the cap. I hit the number and then I said, okay, that was it. So I got rid of the channel. I sold my entire collection. That was it.
Well, I mean, at least you probably recouped a lot of costs by selling the collection.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Because I mean, from the time you started till now, a lot of stuff has gone up in value.
Oh yeah. Well, back then I worked at Taco Bell, I lived at home. I spent probably over 10 grand on stuff, just buying things. Like I had the arcade machine. I'd go raid Toys R Us aisles just to do like, hey, pick up videos and all this stuff. But it's like I like the editing process and just the video creation side of it too. It was fun, So
I often don't get a chance to just enjoy this stuff because it's like, oh, cool. I bugged Mark and Corey and John to teach me new things in Premiere, but I have to get it done by the end of the week because I have 3 videos coming out. Very often I don't get a chance to just sit there and be like, let me experiment with things. So I got to try to take a deep breath sometimes and enjoy it a little more.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? Your business is obviously growing. You've reached out and done a lot more thumbnails and a lot of editing stuff for other people because you do video editing as well,
yes.
right?
Yep.
What's the next step in the future? Are you going to just expand that, add more services?
At this point, it's kind of at a mark where I need to do something because I'm getting to a point where I'm not having time to live my life. Like certain channels like breaking news channels, for example, like they need thumbnails. I just bought a house a couple months ago. Like I can't really just, hey, I'll do it later because then the opportunity's gone, And it's like, I'm all about the grind. It's not the most healthy thing, but it's like, I love what I do and I want to do it as much as I can. It's like, if it was 24/7, I'd probably be okay with that.
Awesome.
And it's like, but because of that, people ask for things and it's like, doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. and I'm in bed or if I'm driving on the interstate. I was on my way to the airport and somebody messaged me like, hey, I need a thumbnail. This was like 4 days ago. I pulled off on an exit and used my hotspot. I'm like, what do you want? Like, it's just.
I think I've done that to you a few times.
I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't think you have. But like, it's just one of those things. Like, I would rather do the thing and maybe suffer mentally for like 30 seconds to, hustle and get ready. But stuff like that, when people upload right now, it's like you got to do the thumbnail right now. I can't wait. But at that point, that's been my reputation though from the beginning of doing the thumbnails for other people like Retro Ralph. I've done his stuff. He was the beginning of the retro corner that I kind of started working through. His stuff has been for 3 years now. Like we have a system, but not everybody has that same system with me.
Yeah.
So like everybody and myself, we all have a different dynamic with how it works. So some people need the stuff right now. Ralph's like, hey, I need this thumbnail, but the video will go up in like a month. So it's like he can wait or whatever. But like my whole thing from working with him at the very beginning was, hey, with my channel, it took like an hour to do a thumbnail. But now it's at a point where I've gotten the flow so optimized, I can get it done much faster now. Like keyboard shortcuts, I have like 30 just sitting in my mind right now. And like I just got a Stream Deck, so everything is just a button.
Awesome.
And it's the best. And it's like I've gotten the flow optimized, so it's like that frees up time. But because of that, I'm working with VG&Y, Video Games New York.
Yeah.
And they're a game dev or a publishing studio. So it's like, that's been really fun. Your tweet actually got them over in contact with me back in the day. So thank you for that.
Well, it was your work that did it.
Well,
right?
still,
if
like,
your work sucked, I would never tweeted you.
Right. Well, no, it's just funny though how things work out like that. But I'm still working with them. They're great. But like he has a lot on the plate too. So it's like obviously like I have to prioritize where it needs to be. So my time management, I have a bad procrastination habit, but not a lot of people know that because I'm always like, boom, here's your thumbnail really quick.
Yeah.
But it's at a point, like I said now, where to answer your question, it's like I don't have time to be that guy anymore. Like I'm always working on something now and it's hard to keep track of it all, but I need a calendar or something. But so far it's just all been in my head. Like I know what I got to do right now. But like, it's not going to be that way forever. It's eventually I need to branch out somehow. I want to get in like trade show banners, things like that. Extra merch that's not just YouTube thumbnails and that kind of thing. Because most of the platforms that I do work with are just for YouTube. Or like social media, like Twitter, Facebook, whatever. But that's all digital. Like I like the idea of doing physical things like banners and you know, tablecloth, whatever it is. Like people need like business cards, that kind of stuff. Like it's just all really fun to me. And anyway, I don't want to be the guy that can just do one thing. Because like I like to get my hands dirty and that kind of stuff. Like,
and you
I like
evolve with the time.
Yeah, and it's like if people are like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, it's just Photoshop and whatever other software, you know, I'm like, I'll figure it out. Yeah, what do you want?
That's so funny because I forgot to message you to make us a banner for Retro World Expo. Hey. And now we're here, and now you said it, I'm like, we don't have a banner. I was supposed to contact you about that.
No, so, it's all good, man. Well, yeah, it's like stuff like that, though. Like, it's really fun for me to, you know, tweak with it and figure out how it works. And then once it's there, you know. And then I can just go with the flow from that and just expand that way, probably.
Love it.
But give it a year or two, I might have to start hiring people, or a person at least. And then, but I have this like standard for my stuff now. It's like I don't want to give that responsibility to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because like I don't trust people like that. I don't want to like, hey,
or maybe not even a trust issue, but you'd have to then train somebody, your workflow, train them to think like you do. Because people are asking for a Mason thumbnail. Like if you hired me, no one wants a Bob thumbnail. They want a Mason thumbnail. So it's like, is that going to end up taking more of your time? Is it going to be?
I've thought about that. I really don't know. It's one of those things like whenever I will do everything I can until I physically cannot anymore. Because again, I just like the process. But like to be able to look back from like a little Mason on YouTube to like, hey, here's where things are at now. Like it's at a point now, like I've done work for At Games through Console Kits. He was working there and he got me on with his team and like I got into UI design there. So it's like anytime I have friends that still ask for stuff like that for their projects and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do it, you know? But like anything that's not YouTube, like I love the YouTube stuff, but like I also like other things too. And it's like not a lot of people know that side of what I can do. Because it's like, you know, the world's full of opportunity. Just
whip up a website, put all your features on it, and then start sharing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you feel about the fact that you're sitting here and you know a couple hours from now I'm going to be asking you to do the thumbnail for this?
Hey, I mean, I have a good picture of me somewhere I can grab. Like, it's one of those things like, you know, we talk like once every week or two probably for your interviews and stuff like that. Like every time you're like, hey, got time for one? I'm like, absolutely, you're Bob. Like I don't care. Again, I'll pull over. I'll, you know, whatever I need to do. Like I got you. But cool. Yeah, it's very cool just to be here and hanging out. And, you know, we talked last night. You said you had a thumbnail you needed to message me about, but you're like, oh, I'll see him in like an hour or whatever. Like, it's just really funny. But
awesome.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Cool. Well, thank you for all the work that you do.
Yeah,
of course, I'm going to have links to everything that you do and
cool,
hopefully spread the word about your work.
Oh, thanks, man.
Cool. Take care, man.
Thank you. You too.
Hey, what's up, Justin? Good to see you, man. So for anybody who didn't catch our interview, Justin is the only reason why there's a RetroRGB still. You rebuilt the whole website for us and dragged it out from the HTML-based crap that I had before that. So
that was some magical things that you did back in the day because you built out hundreds of pages for the website, which you didn't know was actually great for the Google crawler, which actually brought the community together. And I thought that was difficult when we were doing a conversion from the old RGB to the new one. I was worried that we would lose the amount of impressions that we could get on Google, you know.
But we didn't. Everything kind of fell into place.
So it worked out pretty good. That was a fun project. That also kicked off the big collaboration from a lot of authors, which I thought was really, really cool. So that made it where we could bring in a lot more people to the site.
Yeah, that made me really happy to see because a lot of those people we've been working with for a long time, and now we get to put them a little more front and center to show everybody who's some of the behind-the-scenes contributors. So that's good stuff.
That's right. So where do you think, and now I'm going to reverse interview if you want.
Sweet.
Where do you think RetroRGB is going to go from here? Because I would like to know, as a software developer that's trying to help out on the site, like what could we do to make it?
So the next step short term is that since all of the guides were migrated over to the wiki, Durf did an amazing job on that. It is now up to me to go through and reroute those guides. And I think I'm gonna do a combination. Some of them are gonna just go direct to there. Others are gonna go like SNES RGB mini mod is probably going to go get relinked back to the main SNES page, and then I'm going to redo every one of those and have it like, Bob's favorite cables, links to, the wiki, and kind of make it more user friendly.
Yeah.
So that people could come in who's never done anything retro gaming before and know where to go. Or you could go, hey, I need the schematic of what capacitor to use on C4 on a revision 1 motherboard, and you could click and know where to get that info too.
Yeah.
And that's short term. I'm trying to get that done within a year. By the end of the year, I hope, but who knows? And I have no idea what's coming after that. But.
It's super important. Like that's what I've always loved about the site. Like before I started helping out, like I wanted to use it as a place. Like if I'm literally doing the mod, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there at a desk with a soldering iron right there, and I need a reference. Like I can't keep this all in my head. Like how do I mod, this or that?
Yeah.
And one of the pain points that I had was I would have my phone, right? And so the original website was like hard to use on a phone, right?
Yeah.
But it's also good, like you were saying, where like a new person who just enters the scene and like discovers that there's better ways to have higher quality video output on your video game consoles. If you show them all those like deep things on the website that they're not ready for yet, like they may bounce out, right?
Exactly.
And leave.
Yeah.
So it's good that you're thinking about, and you have that page that's always like getting started. You're thinking about that, like how do we get them into the.
I gotta make a conscious effort to like every 6 months check that, because little tiny things change, and of course with the part shortage, like just buy this one thing and you're done. That's been out of stock for a year. What are you talking about? So I gotta make sure to keep that. But I like that page. I hope that's the gateway drug for people, if you will.
Right.
But.
The other thing I was thinking about that we worked together on a lot. When we were converting it over, we were debating whether or not the site was going to be a wiki or it's going to be a blog. And I remember we were both hesitant about this whole, okay, what's going to be that homepage?
Yeah.
Is the homepage getting started or is the homepage a blog? And I think we were both hesitant to be like, maybe it should be the blog, or maybe it should be get started at the top and then it's a blog. But where we landed was, it's a place where you can like find the news, right? Like this week, this is what's going on.
It's funny, now that you say that though, Mason did a new logo for us like a year and a half ago. And I said, all right, well, when we finish migrating to the wiki, let's switch over this logo and this will be RetroRGB 4.0. Maybe that's it. Maybe we change the front page to still have news and not be crowded like all the modern blogs. I hate those. Like you click on any of I use RSS readers now because they're just too messy. But maybe we make it so that there's blatant news in the middle, but it's a little easier to see on your phone or on a browser, like getting started, interviews, like make it a little bit more so people don't just think it's a blog who are just discovering it, but at the same time, not so overloaded that it's like, what am I even looking at here?
That's right. I think I've said that to other people where if you come to the site and just look at that first page, you don't actually know how deep RetroRGB is. I didn't even know, right? Like when I was doing the conversion, and this was years ago, right? I was like, oh, I have to convert 200 pages over into a database, right? So I had to write a script that could parse all that out, and went through it, several times. That was like 4 years ago, right? Now you got multiple authors, so the database is actually really big, so you don't know how deep that blog actually goes, or all the tutorials. But it's a rich website with a lot of contribution from a lot of different people, a lot of knowledge that, and you've always said this, and I think this is so true for your site. It's two things, right? There's information that's coming in that's telling you, here's some news that's happening this week. And that news could be only relevant for that time period. Then there's facts that won't change. It's like, this is how a Nintendo works, right? This is the schematics. If you want to do a mod, this is different mods that you can do. And so you always said, like, how are we going to take this information that's coming in this kind of RSS feed blog format and then make that more permanent later? And that's actually been our struggle. Is like,
still is, yeah,
it
big time.
Still is. But it's true. RetroRGB is two things, right? It's this informational fact about how hardware works or different mods that you can do to that hardware. And that should be written in such a way where it's just like anyone can consume it. It's no opinion. It's just like, this is how it works. And then, hey, here's some news, and maybe there's some opinions there.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you know what? I try to always format my posts. I mean, anybody's welcome to format their posts the way they want, but for me, it's always the facts, the links, because it kind of drives me nuts when modern blogs bury the links because they want you to scroll through all their ads. Like, I don't pull that shit. Links, ads, and then my thoughts underneath. And very often the thoughts are mostly facts anyway. But you know, if I have something to say, that's where I stick it, not right up at the top. And I like that format. It's a failed format. You know, it's the format where you have to scroll by ads is how to make money. But I think that's like offensive to the people that have been supporting RetroRGB forever. So I try to keep it good. And all the writers, even the ones that have completely different formats, none of them are like affiliate link overloads, and none of them are ad overloads. They all have their own style, but it's about presenting content the way they want, not about how can I get enough people to click on my affiliate links. So I like that. We got a good crew.
Right. I love that as well. An important thing that you wanted to create a platform for contributors to really, you can write your articles. And I remember we spent time on it. We're like, how are we going to make it where everyone knows, like, hey, this is a post by Break Command, right?
Yeah.
Or this is a post by so-and-so, right? And you can click on their link and then go see all of their posts, even to the point where we're like, what if someone's only interested in one person's opinion on the site? Like, they could like click on their link and just like update and do that. Or maybe they're a YouTube content creators. Like, maybe that's how they get discovered by many people, as they come to RetroRGB. They read this awesome article and it's like, oh, here's a video that you can watch that would take them to their content. And you always embrace that. I always thought that was really good, because I don't see that a lot, you know?
Well, the last thing that you added was it started with the negativity, which is unfortunately what happens so often. But I think it was Linktree banned me. And I emailed them and I was like, what on earth could you possibly have banned me for? I don't say anything controversial. We talk about video games. And it took like 2 days, and they got back to me and they're like, we're sorry, it was a mistake. I'm like, so what if I was relying on this? So then when you added that stuff and you changed it so our profile could essentially be whatever we want it to be. So I have it basically set up like a prettier link tree. And then, of course, all the RetroRGB.link stuff that you hooked up. So now any one of the writers, if they wanted to, you could be RetroRGB.link/Justin if you wanted to. And you never have to worry about getting banned because some algorithm, you know, said that the video game post that you wrote is offensive or something. So it's I like that. That was cool. I hope more of the writers take advantage of that, even if it's just for like a link tree you could trust as opposed to that. So I think that was great. Thank you for that.
Yeah. The one thing that we haven't solved that I think would be fun is we wanted to figure out a way to make it where someone could subscribe on another platform like Twitter. And like how are we going to solve that? Like, do you create another account that's like RetroRGB News, and then everyone who posts on RetroRGB would automatically link out? Because we did spend time making it where if someone does post on Twitter or Facebook, it has that picture, you know, and it's nice description there.
So that is the same struggle that I've had for 4 years when I first talked to you about it. Is I would love to take all of my social media accounts and just make them retweet bots for the site. I'd love to clear out everything else. But the reality is, then how am I going to pay my bills? So it's like, I got to find a happy medium in this and figure it out. So I don't know. We'll figure that out as we go, I guess.
It's a struggle, because you've said this many years. It's like, I'm not RetroRGB, like the community is RetroRGB, except for you kind of, people that have been following you for a while, like literally call you RetroRGB. So how do you separate the Bob from the RetroRGB? I think for a while you were like, I'm RGB Bob, or...
No, I'm pretty sure I always kept it separate, but the bigger struggle for me was like, how do I continue to run this while making contributors feel like they're not making content to pay my bills? And I think that whole like encouragement for everybody to use their own affiliate links isn't the best answer, but at least it's gesture enough where people know that I'm trying. So hopefully we can figure out better ways to promote other people, but at the very least, you know, the actions speak louder than words type of thing. So that's pretty cool.
So I was thinking, it's 2022, we're halfway through the year. What has been your highlight? I'm going to put you on the spot here. Your highlights of RetroRGB.com, perhaps by product or contribution, or things that you just really enjoyed from this community.
But that's too cheesy of an answer because we're here. So, oh geez. I think it was watching Arturo Sabin finally finally get through to people about latency. And because he went through the same exact struggles that I went through, if people are just like, lag doesn't matter, you're just trying to promote your thing, you're just, and or it's that weird caveman thing people do where it's like, if I show you a better way of doing something, you interpret that as insulting the way you do things, which is not at all what Art was doing. And watching him finally break through, I was just like, I gave him the biggest hug the other day. I was like, we're finally doing it. Of years of getting trashed from people, we're finally getting through. So yeah, my favorite retro, because Art is Art, but he is, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have made it to the point where I met you. So I consider him a contributor and a part of it. So while it's technically not a RetroRGB thing, that for me was the biggest this year of like, cool. Go Art. So
I was thinking, throughout the years with RetroRGB, I've been following you for a while, been part of the community in large, It seems like there's this thing that changes over time where it's let me explain it this way. It started out with LCD panels are horrible, right? Like, oh my God, they introduce all this lag. What you need to do is use a CRT and there's no better way. And I think My Life in Gaming actually did a pretty good job. There was a really good, I think it was episode 1 of Analog Frontiers, where there was this speech at the end almost. It was like, however you want a game actually is the right answer, right?
Yes.
It's like, you may remember retro gaming different. Hey, if you want to play with an RF on a CRT, like an RF is, sure, that's fine. But you should at least know, like, there's other options out there, and then pick the one that is enjoyable for you. What would you say, and I've seen you as well, like over the time kind of shift your opinion about like lag, or, it used to be like, if there's a single frame of lag, then it's trash, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like a little bit more like, how do you think that's changed?
So the biggest part of lag has been trying to find ways to explain to people what you see and feel. And that's on me for not taking a long time to figure it out. But the shortest way I could say it is, if you take a crappy, laggy LCD panel with tons of motion blur, you're gonna feel a frame of lag.
Yeah.
But if you have a beautiful OLED, and that's, or even a CRT, an HD CRT with 2 frames of lag, or a plasma with 2 frames of lag, if there's no motion blur and it's consistent latency, it doesn't feel the same. So trying to explain to people why, those garbage emulation in a box solutions that range between 3 and 7 frames of lag, that's bad.
Yeah.
But why, the RetroTink 5X in triple buffer mode is just over a frame, but it kind of feels close to 0 in mode, unless you're using a laggy, crappy LCD. And Blur Busters has helped a lot with that. I'm a big fan of theirs. And their little things that they show on their website is a good visualization. But my opinions on lag have always kind of been the same, and my opinions on like using RF on a CRT is great. It's how I explain them is what's really been evolving. Artemio was a big part of that, helping me. I don't even think he realized he did it, but he absolutely helped me in the CRT side of things, and helping me choose my words. And that, like, composite sucks on a really fancy scaler on a bad LCD.
Yes.
But composite's beautiful on a CRT.
That's right.
So trying to pick my wordings for these things has definitely been, I would say, a harder struggle than doing the actual research, because it's really easy. Like when Art the other day sat me down in front of a 390 hertz setup, like you press the button 5 times and you're like, I get it. I've seen the future. Try explaining that to people. Well, does it look like a CRT? No. Well, does it look sharper? No. Well, why does it matter? And that's trying to explain it is the hard part, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. This year also, with the RetroTink 5X that you brought up, it's just been amazing. Like, that product is an interesting one, because the way I saw it, I was sold when it first came out. Firmware 1, the demonstrations of what it could do day 1, sounds good. Here's my money. Take it, right?
Yeah.
And then he just keeps on coming out with firmware updates that are like, well, you can do that now? Oh, wait, this now? Or this now? There's questions of whether or not it should be called the 5X anymore, right?
Yeah, he could have, if he wanted to, just sold the same batch and the same hardware for about a year, and then called it the RetroTink 6X, and he just gave it for free. Here you go. Here's all of my other work. Just take it. So I think that's really commendable. I love that shit.
So one thing I haven't tried is the new, what is it?
HDR mode?
The HDR mode is blowing me away. Like, when I read that article, I was like, you can do that? I guess that makes sense. How are they doing that? I'm looking into this where they're talking about they're tricking the HDMI to do it, and then you leverage that to be like, we're basically got so much dynamic contrast that you can simulate a CRT. Blowing me away.
That's a great one.
I haven't experienced it yet, but I heard you talk about it and how great it was. I want to see where that's gonna go.
Me too. I kind of have opinions on that, but I want to wait till I can demo it all in a way where I'm just very excited about it. I'll just leave it at that.
This is the thing that I have noticed you've said before that I've witnessed multiple times, and that is someone saying, they're like, oh, you're talking to someone that you're meeting, and you're like, what are your hobbies? And you talk about, retro gaming, and the guy's like, yeah, I got my old Nintendo out, and I plugged it into my TV, and one person will be like, yeah, I had to sell it because it doesn't work. They're like plugged in through AV cables on their LCD TV, and like it just didn't work.
Yeah.
There's that, and then there's it just looked like crap.
Yes.
And then they actually say that, I guess it always was crappy. Look,
Yeah.
what are you talking about? It was always crappy. No, it wasn't. It's crappy now that you're plugging it into a TV that doesn't understand the signal and it's stretching it. And then I have this one Samsung TV that I love, except when I plug in retro gaming to it, it has that motion blur. I cannot turn it off. So you play Sonic, you play Mario, and literally while they're running, there's like this trail almost of. And it's like it's nowhere in the settings to turn that feature off, but that's how some people are actually experiencing retro gaming.
And that's upsetting because a lot of people don't see the dominoes fall, and that's my years of being in tech, right? Your goal is to always find everything that can go wrong. So as you get older, you start to see this, but that person probably would have loved that game, which means they would have subscribed to your channel, bought your product, gone to your event. Everybody loses. They lose fun and entertainment. A lot of other people lose money in business, all because they didn't get the right information. Some YouTuber was paid to promote some junk, and it's just, so it bugs me because I see everybody lose, especially the person who used to love that game that still totally could.
Right. One thing that I'm trying to do is try to experience retro gaming in different formats, because for a long time I've been like, there's only one way. This is how to do it. It's a CRT, or if you're doing an LCD, Retro 5X, all these different ways. So recently I got those really cheap Ambernick handhelds.
Yeah.
And normally I would be like, it's horrible, but then I'm like, it's got an IPS screen on it. It's actually pretty good. It comes kind of loaded with all these games. But I can tell you that I started playing with it and I learned something, and I reflected, I realized, you're learning something. There's nothing wrong with that. And it was, the size of that LCD is not 4x3, but in RetroArch it has some options for like this, I don't know what mode they call it. You basically zoom in, right? It's gonna crop some of the order. So I was playing some Mega Man. I was like, this isn't horrible. Like Mega Man is a type of game where there's not really any information at the bottom and top.
Yeah, so it's the same theory as running in 1080p 5X. You just zoom and crop it.
That's exactly what's happening. And it's like there's these tiny little borders on the side. And the only thing is like your strength. You can't really tell between 100 and 90%. That part is actually chopped off. So it's not perfect, but I can say I played through a couple levels and I was like, it's not that bad. And so I'm starting to appreciate like, it's okay to kind of like, venture out and try things you normally wouldn't have done.
Yeah. Stuff. I mean, stuff like that. It's getting more mainstream that people understand. Like, this is an emulation box.
Yeah.
It's not original hardware, but it's still really fun. So I think anybody that's done the slightest bit of research would realize, like, maybe the game is glitching on this thing, but I love it. Let me go get the original. Whereas those crappy cables that you plug into your original console, you really feel like this should be the experience. So that's why, it's good to branch out and it's good to get the info out. Have you done a video on that yet?
I haven't done a video. There's a lot of like content that, like where, I get the product, I play with it, I form an opinion, I talk about it on my podcast, but I don't like make a dedicated video. It's kind of like just interweaved into my normal chat. But I've been thinking about it more. There was a video I did on this company sent me this product from China that like is loaded with a ton of games, and I did a review video on it, and it was kind of fun to do the review on it. It's tough, right? Because it's one of those things where, okay, the product comes, it's one of those that has like 90,000 games on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, It's not curated in any way that makes any
All
sense.
stolen IP anyway.
100%, right? And then, but there's a handful of people that are like getting into the scene, you know, retro gaming, and I'm like, is that going to be it's probably a product you're going to put in the drawer, right?
Yeah.
But is it okay to buy a product and put it in the drawer if that's the product that was like, you buy it and go, okay, that was fun, now I want to get into the new thing? Because would you buy the second thing ever? Do you need...
As long as you understand that one is the other, I
Right.
think that's awesome. I love that stuff. Virtual consoles, the same way. If it wasn't for the virtual console, I wouldn't have gotten back into those kind of games. So, but you know, it's all about the environment. I think those are the things that are the gateway drug, as opposed to the things that polarize and push people away. So.
Right. So what I've been trying to do, and I'm not perfect at it, but is if I cover that, I make it very clear. I'm like, hey, this has 90,000 games on it. Half of them are duplicates. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's at least inform on what you're getting. Now, if you want to get it, that's your thing, right? And I leave it at that. But more recently, you know, that actually...
But you would never get on camera and be like, this is the greatest way to play games. Click on my affiliate link, subscribe.
No.
Yeah, like,
I was
it's
like,
not
this
you
is
at all.
another
Like,
way.
yeah, here's another way to do it. Here's how it's going to look. You know, yeah,
But
so that's awesome.
There's a whole other side of that. Like, that company reached out and they're like, hey, we want to send you another product. I'm like, sounds good. And it was like a different agent. And so they sent me this other product, and they're like, we want you to cover this console. And I thought, hey, I can cover this because I'll talk to the technology. I don't even really like the idea of making a YouTube video that is encouraging people to buy something that has ROMs preloaded on it.
Agreed.
So, but I did make the video, and I was like, I'm going to focus on the technology and the spec and be like, oh, it comes with ROMs. But here you go. I'm going to talk about the specs on the unit, like, and compare that to other Android-based devices and what you can expect. And then I was like, so I was already kind of breaking my own rules on that, and I felt a little uncomfortable with it, but I was like, maybe this angle, and I justified it to myself to go ahead and do it. So they're like, we want to send you another one. I'm like, okay, send me another one. I'm focusing on how I make content, whatever. But they sent me a hard drive, just a hard drive. And I was like, hey man, you're supposed to send me another Android-based console. I got this hard drive. And I'm uncomfortable with making a video that is a hard drive. And they're like, no, it's not a hard drive. It's a console. You plug it into your computer, and when you boot up, boom, there's your video games. It's like, you're selling ROMs only. It's a hard drive.
Oh, what pieces of shit.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you want to send me the Android device, I'll review it, right? I'll focus on the spec, right? I'll do that. And they're like, well, why don't you go ahead and review the hard drive first, and then we'll send you the Android. I'm like, no, we're done. We're done.
Good call.
It was fun working with you, but, and then I talked to some of my friends, and they're like, exact same story. They're like, same company, reached out. They said, no, I don't want to review a hard drive that comes preloaded with ROMs. You're basically selling ROMs. And they sent it to them anyway. And
There's
they're like,
a lot of dirtbags in the scene. There's more good than bad, but I won't say who, but the creeper going around with a fake name is the one that, like, that's the one that really, like, totally gives me the creeps. And I don't mean fake name like Justin Console Kits. I mean, like, that one's the weirdest one. But whatever, it's more good than bad.
Yeah, that was tough. And it was weird. Some of those emails like felt very pressuring, right? And for a moment, I was like even thinking about making that hard drive video. I was like, well, okay. And then I talked to my wife, and she's like, no, remember. And I love this. There's the few content creators out there that are like, you should write down, you know, exactly kind of like your own personal policies, and then like review them and remember, like, are you, you know, adhering? Because you can easily slip and kind of like, what am I doing now?
I don't know. I feel like you got a pretty good moral compass for this stuff. So, you know, just keep doing what you're doing to make good content. So, and you know, you stopped yourself before you made the hard drive videos. You're obviously doing it right. But
Yeah.
cool.
Well, it's been fun.
Yeah. So what's next for you? Just continuing doing your thing, putting out your videos, having some fun?
Yeah, of course, my channel is currently like focused a lot on Arcade 1-Up. I feel like there's a community of people out there that really appreciate like what I do. And
your take on Arcade 1-Up,
That's
your
right.
honest take that really helps people, not this is the greatest arcade machine ever. Like, no, your honest
I will say,
take.
like, this is what I keep on saying, like, especially since I obviously have a big love for retro gaming. It's like their first gen. Like, I keep on thinking, like, My Life in Gaming did a video back in the day. I think it was members only, like Final Fight. And I was like, why they? Obviously, Final Fight is a great system, but that particular model, they ruined it. Like, you know, its scaling is bad. You know, there's shimmering, and if you look at the hardware, it was like they're outputting 640 by 480, going to a scaler that's then going to 5x4, and it's like all of these reasons why it's shimmering, right? And I talked to the company and I showed them, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, right? And so that's what I've been doing behind the scenes for years. And it's like now, 2 gigahertz processor quad core, 1280 by 960p output directly to LVDS. And that's me banging on them. And the recent one is they switched to TN monitors with a fluorescent bulb only on the left side. I'm like, no, IPS or nothing. IPS or nothing. You know, I literally made videos that are like, this is the worst monitor I've ever seen. And it's true. Objectively, it is the worst monitor. And they recently said, like, going forward, everything's going to be IPS.
Good.
And it's like 4x3 when they can. They're 19-inch, they can't acquire a 4x3. And that was me pushing them too. It's like, no, I don't even want you guys to do 5x4. Do 4x3. Like, most of these arcades were 4x3. And the only exception was there's literally no 19-inch on the market that's in their price range that's 4x3.
Yeah, and part shortage is really making that too, because all the little niche things, people are like, well, why am I going to make 10,000 of these when I can make 100,000 of these? So forget it. Here's the thing. So, but yeah, thank you for fighting the good fight on that one. That's it's made a difference, obviously.
Yeah, so I'm going to continue to focus in that area, and then hanging out with you guys. It's like I'm always like, how can I improve my production quality? So there's only so far I can do when covering Arcade 1-Up content. So I'm probably gonna, I've done a couple of Mr. videos that did pretty well. So there's always other content that I enjoy making. So I'm gonna try to dive into that more, but mainly to focus on like, can I use these other content to reach different people and then also improve my production quality? It's always fun to grow and learn.
Well, thank you for what you do. It's much appreciated. Thanks for coming. It's great to see you in person again. So yeah, awesome. I'll obviously link to all of your stuff as well, but good to see you again, dude.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Hell yeah. Mark?
Bob?
All right, fine. Brian, what's up,
How you
man?
doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you for making the trip here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pretty far one for you, right?
First time to the East Coast, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
After all these years, the band you were in, you never made it to the East Coast?
No, furthest was like Milwaukee, or last time when we went to, where was it? Kentucky.
Kentucky, at the Kentucky-Ohio border. Yeah. I wouldn't call that East Coast, though.
That's just as far east.
Yeah. Oh,
as I
yeah.
know.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, glad you made it. You got your Rondo product shirt. That's pretty cool. So, we did the interview kind of recently. So I just wanted to check in. What's new? What's been going on?
Yeah.
Everybody's asking for the 68X boards. I keep telling them FPGAs are the hardest thing to get. They'll come eventually, but
The 68X board actually just checked in on that yesterday while I was stuck at the airport. So that is in like final production. Should be shipping to us next week, hopefully. The samples came in, tested those. We made one change, and then that change has been verified, and now they're in final. So as soon as they're done, it'll be nice to get those out to people, because the prep side, once I get them, is pretty quick. So we'll be able to crank those out in just a couple of days. But
yeah, I don't think people really realize like the finished product had to be redesigned a couple times based on the part shortage, based on production, based on
at least 3 or 4 times. But also not all of them just for that. Sometimes it was because there was a way to make something better, and something was stalled out for another reason anyway. You know, so I would say the end product is better than what we talked about initially when it was announced.
Yeah.
Would be nice if it was already in people's hands all the same, but at least if you're given a little extra time, you can use it to make something better.
I mean, if this was 2019, I'd be busting your chops about it. Now I'm just so happy that we're able to get anything made ever.
If this was 2019, that would have been announced and take 8 to 10 weeks to get it in my hands.
Yeah.
But nowadays, and that one, initially, everything was in stock when I ordered it. Mm-hmm. So paid for it, paid for everything, got got it all ordered. And then as the, so it's kind of like in your PCB, is it PCB way? The
JLC
JLC
yeah.
PCB videos, they like do that same thing where they like order all those parts, and in a matter of like a day or two, I think 4 or 5 different parts went out of stock on their end. Then I had to source them. I had to buy parts from resellers who were taking a pretty unfair markup. Hope that they actually don't ship me like a box of bolts or something.
Yeah. That's actually a thing.
Have a bunch of sleepless nights until those show up. They showed up, they were fine. And then just like start putting things together in just a totally different order of operations than it would have been done before. Normally something like this would have been like, probably closer to the 10, because like we would have just ordered them and had them ship us some samples, verified them, say good to go, and then get them in hand. But it's just not how it works anymore.
I know.
So
yeah, that's it's depressing, but I think we're just starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Not like it's just a pin in the distance, but I think we're getting towards it finally.
I think we're starting to see where some of the surprising things that were out of stock are starting to be more readily available. Just different like capacitors, resistors, connectors, things like that. But I also think that in the meantime, we've all gotten creative and figured out some workarounds and in some cases some better ways of doing things. And I don't know, it's like we've kind of adapted, I guess, is probably the best way. But there are still some things that just aren't going to be available for a while. So
yeah.
We'll
what
see.
about other Rondo products that are going to be available? You got anything coming up in the Sooner side?
Sooner side would be like PCBs for flashing games. That's probably the next thing. So we're working on a few things right now. The first thing will be like different 240p test suite cartridges
Nice.
and options for people on various consoles where they don't exist now currently. Outside of like loading up like a ROM cart,
Right.
But having like a dedicated, and then that is also going to be and serve as to show like, hey, this is what our carts look like. This is how they're built. Appeal to people who are doing small runs of games or even larger runs of games that they need a manufacturing side and a production side for. So for Rondo, I think it's going to be the publishing side that's going to be picking up steam the most.
Nice.
The DC power supply, with the triads and things like that, is pretty fleshed out.
Good. Those have been really handy.
Those are really handy. Although we're looking at some for some like Gen 2 stuff like Atari consoles and things like that use different connectors than are currently supported. So that'll grow a little bit, but that one's pretty well fleshed out.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So everything else on the, so the Rondo side, for anybody that didn't happen to see the other interview, the Rondo Products is kind of your other company that are, you're making your own products or you're licensing people, like actually licensing people's products, not cloning it like, our certain friend overseas.
Yeah.
And then Castlemania is just the store that everybody knows that sells things, including Rondo products. But
right.
Other people could sell Rondo products as well.
And
so.
anyone can register for an account. The website is like locked down, so you can like kind of scroll around and look at things, but you don't see any pricing. It just has login for pricing. But anyone can register for like a wholesale account, whether they're buying for their store or if they're buying for like they're a modder and they want to stock up and get a bulk rate on 10 of these kits because they sell pre-modded consoles.
That's really handy.
So it's for those kind of avenues. And then what was I going to say? So yeah, that one. That's kind of the way that was conceived and kind of. Oh, what I wanted to say was the other part of it and kind of the intent behind it was there are a lot of people who like making things, but they don't want to manage the business side of customer service and having things built and even designing like packaging, or it's like, oh man, I'd like this to feel like a little bit more of a finished product or be available in different stores or even just my store. And so that it's supposed to be like the kind of like the bridge between the maker, the designer, the builder of this product, and the it's like the wholesale step in between any retailer.
I keep trying, for years now, I've always told people, like, maybe you should reach out to somebody that has experience in this. And it's always the same. It's always, people listen, but they're like, well, I'm just going to try it myself. Doesn't seem that hard. And then by the time they're done with it, they're like, what did I get myself into? I should have just gone to somebody else in the first place.
It comes down to like, anyone can like open up a store, and start selling things, and they should if that's what they want to do. But you quickly find yourself doing more of that and less of now your backlog of the things you were working on aren't getting touched,
Yeah.
So if you find yourself spending more time doing the secondary thing, and now all of your production side and your design side is paying the price for that, then you just have to decide, is my time better spent building and making things, or is it better spent supporting the things that I've made and trying to get those going?
Exactly.
Some people can do both, and that's awesome. But I think what I'm hearing from a lot of people that like I work with and people that we've talked to is that they're realizing that that's the case. Hey, maybe it'd be better if I just focused on making these things and then let someone else run with it.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
How about the team? Have you continued to expand? Is your core group kind of just holding down the fort for you?
So I don't 100% remember where we were at the time, but
you had hired 2 people?
2 people. So we have, basically we have a full-time customer service person, and Danielle, and she answers the phones. So if you call, that's who you're talking to, and then she answers the emails. So, anything where like it comes through on a DM or something like that, I'm still kind of handling those. I just have to set up accounts and things for her to log into. And then we've got basically the one full-time person in shipping, but also another person that he can't work full-time, but he works like 2 days a week. So he comes in to like help us catch up on things, particularly so he knows how to assemble G-comp switches. We've got the largest order I've ever had of those coming in. They're already all sold. But that's gonna take, even with like all of us working on it, it's gonna take 3 plus 4 weeks maybe to assemble and ship them all. So whereas if I was just doing that by myself, that would just, that's like, if that takes that long for a couple of people to do it, so I guess it would take twice as long. But that's been a tremendous help. And then when we get basically large pre-order shipments come in, it's been a big help to have somebody that is part-time to be able to just come in and like carry that
just
load.
The very simple, taking stuff out of the bulk shipment box, matching it to people's orders, putting the label, repacking it. That's so time consuming.
And so like when we get larger like shipments of like Retrobit games, like the Gaia Race and stuff like that, those we run through an actual machine to package, and it takes 2 people minimum to run that. But if you're just doing that, that means you're just doing that. So like it's good to have him and Lisa like doing that, and then I can still do the actual daily new business, which was always a balancing act before, where it's like, hey, we got this large shipment in, everyone's excited about it, got to get these orders out as fast as we can, but you still have regular stuff coming in every day, and those people's orders are just as important. So having that third person in the shop, especially on those large shipments, has been a huge help to kind of just keep up with things. So
good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, right now that's been an awesome help. Oh, and then it helps me free up too, like when we get things where I have to program and test things, that's not coming now at the cost of shipping time. So
Awesome.
So it's been a big help. I think this is probably the crew for now. And we'll see how things change. But for right now, that's working out pretty good for us.
Very cool. And what about in the short term? Anything coming up? Any pre-orders? Any new products? I know we're kind of in a weird spot.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. It's where I was talking about adapting. Like people are just going after a little bit different things right now. So, like on the Rondo side, I'm going to start pushing heavily the publishing element of that because there's nothing stopping that parts wise. Can get that going. On that specifically, actually, too, I was just talking about this inside. Some people want to, I'm going to be adding this to the Rondo site, just a manufacturing only element of the publishing. So it's like if you're starting your own studio and you've made an indie game for Super Nintendo game, but you want it to be published by we'll just manufacture that. So we'll have the so it's like published by, manufactured by kind of thing.
I like that.
And then that way it gives people the ability to like build their brand, but not have to figure out how to make sure that they're building things correctly.
Yeah.
And just take the load off there. Back to the kind of the idea of what do you want to spend your time doing, So if you're making games, you should spend your time making games and let somebody else manufacture them. We'll put your logo on the box and do all that stuff. But yeah, that's the kind of idea there. As far as other items, we have different controllers that we're working with Retrobit and Retro Fighters on. So they have the Big 6 controller, which is a pretty interesting one. Seems like a lot more people are interested in that than I think Retrobit expected, because it's been quite popular.
Retrobit needs to just start listening to people.
Well,
there's been so many times where they're like, oh, but we didn't even know people wanted that.
Well,
did you ask?
Yeah,
we could all have told you.
Yeah, I think they demoed it, at like PRGE and some of the like SoCal Retro, and they definitely got that positive feedback. But it's performing pretty well. So
Cool.
On the pre-sale side, so I think they're pretty happy with that. And then Retro Fighters is actually bringing back their wired. It's so funny. People like want wireless, and then they move everything over to wireless, and then people start asking for wired again, which is just
It's
an
because
interesting.
people love the idea of wireless until they realize the amount of latency it adds, which depending on how it's built and depending on your games, it could not matter or it could matter very much. So it's because more information is getting out there so that people are starting to see where is the right time to have an extension cable and when's the right time to go wireless. I truly think that's it.
I think part of it too, at least for me, is the whole idea of like, what is the time from the time you decide you want to play a game to you're actually playing it, where you're like pulling out all this stuff, figuring out where did that adapter go, where did this go, and so if you can just literally walk in, plug in, and hit power, and you're playing whatever, it's like less to worry about, which sounds dumb until you open that controller drawer and despite your efforts, I was telling Corey just now about like, when I was going to play the NES or the NT, I'd have all these like 8-bit DO or 8-bit DO 2.4 gigahertz receivers, but they match very specifically to whichever one you paired them to. So I'm putting color dots on things and like doing that. And it's like that kind of issue across so people just seem to be going back to wired. So they're doing a wired controller again, but they're adding in, they changed the way the buttons were, like on the shoulder buttons, so that they felt more accurate to the original. So they're bringing in some of their version 2 or version 3 kind of features back to the original version 1 wired. So we'll see how that's going to do.
And hopefully they're listening to feedback, because a lot of the reviews that came out pointed out specific things that definitely had room for improvement, reasonable things for improvement.
Well, that's where I give them credit. They've, at great cost to themselves, gone back and fixed things every single time. Like when they go to reproduce a controller, the N64 one, like infamously had a design flaw with the L button, and they went back, they replaced every single one, for
awesome.
customers, and they went back and fixed it and made a new one. So they do. They're one of the good guys out there that actually listens to what everyone's saying and doesn't, they make it right.
Good.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good feedback about them too over the years. So.
Yeah. And then other than that, like actually working with Greg with Laser Bear on some things that we'll be announcing next week. So we'll be coming alongside him with the Blue Retro GameCube controller port stuff, and
Love it.
We're working on some other things together as well that aren't fleshed out enough to fully talk about just yet. But so there'll be some team ups between myself and Greg, but we've always worked together. So nothing new there, but a little more formal with some of his own like the laser bit stuff and different adapters and things we're working on. Yeah.
Awesome. I can't wait to see all that come through.
Yeah. So yeah, some good stuff coming on the horizon. It's just funny, like with the parts shortage, how it's just kind of changed direction, but it hasn't changed people's like passions. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like it's all still there. We still want to make cool stuff. It's like, okay, can't make that. What can we make? That's kind of where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, great to see you. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming. Thanks for the update. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you got coming next.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Thanks, man. See ya.
See ya.
Shank, what's up, dude? It's
good to see you, man.
Very good to see you here. We obviously did an interview. I'm a fan of your videos, but a lot of people don't know all the behind-the-scenes stuff you work on as well. I saw you brought a nifty little lag test kit that we're gonna have to talk about. But so I just wanted to check in with you. Do you want to talk about any of the lag stuff that you've been doing? I think people would really love to see. Like, you should start a second channel just for live streaming some of the crazier stuff that you do. That
Yeah, I do some cause being like a CRT junkie and like playing Melee and stuff, I'm really into not just like quality video signals, but like testing latency. So ever since I got like a time sleuth, I'm like, and I could finally like, I could mathematically show lag rather than just kind of a feel and arbitrary. Like once you're able to like mathematically categorize it, it really changes it.
Yeah.
So I've got video converters. I've got a box that I've just assembled so it's really portable of like video converters and.
So you mean like HDMI to component, HDMI to VGA?
Yes.
VGA, okay.
And then, so I mainly have like two DACs, like HDMI to component and HDMI to VGA, but using component, I can use the Luma of that because it's just a black and white signal to drive composite and S video. And using the VGA DAC, I made a little circuit board to turn VGA into, so RGBHV of VGA into RGBS.
Nice.
Of RGB. So then I can use that to drive, 240p RGB through the time sleuth to test all sorts of stuff. So I can quickly, it's really cool to like take, if I'm buying a CRT, to be like, okay, all right, this one handles 240p, right? Oh, it's scaling this, or see, it's the bars are a little flagging a bit, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I still do all that manually. I need to make a little test kit just like you did, but that's cool.
I'll definitely. There's just lots of. I think the time sleuth is such a cool device. I wish it was more widely available. It's the kind of thing where I was like, when Dan was telling me about it a while, I was like, oh, I'll try it out and stuff. And once I tried it, I was hooked. Like, 'cause it's not just useful to measure latency. It's great because with a quick knob, I can set it 240p, 480i, 480p, 720p, 1080p.
Yeah.
So I can quickly test compatibility, test if a screen works, if I have a video, if I just got a new video converter, I can run it through that, see if it.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
Be like, this one works with 480i, 15 kilohertz, but not 30, all sorts of stuff.
So one of the things that we've been talking about is different types of HD CRTs, and I've tested a bunch recently. And there was ones, the Sonys were exactly as I expected. There was a few other brands that were a little unexpected.
Yes.
And I don't want to do the video about that yet because I want to make sure we get our research right. But on the Sonys, there are like 2 frames of lag usually.
Yes.
All of them process 240p incorrectly. They're as 480i. And is that correct?
That's my understanding. I wouldn't quote me on that. I do know they handle stuff weird, like they run it as a. I read somewhere like they handle 480i as like. It's weird what they'll do. Like for 480p, my understanding is they take the 480p and put it inside of a 540p black window and then overscan it.
So that's what I wanted to ask you about, because I still haven't quite grasped why they would do that.
So my understanding is so that that it is always running at 33 kilohertz. So it is always, whether it's 540p or it's 1080i, it's always running at the same exact rate. The flyback is always running at the same. Whereas, because I read in some documentation on a different one that they performed the scaling so then it doesn't have to have sync processing to be able to know what the frequency of the signal is and change its behavior, change the behavior of the flyback and the circuitry based on that.
That makes sense, because the Sony that I just tested the other day, I still, shockingly, being an old man, have great hearing. So like I put my ear up to the vents in the back of the CRT, and I was changing the time sleuth around, and the frequency never changed, not once. So it's not like when, if you go from 15 kilohertz to 31, not only do you normally hear the clicks of the power supply, but that 15 kilohertz whine disappears and there's a different frequency. None of that, at least on the Sony. The other ones I haven't had a chance to retest yet. Yeah. So that means they're definitely all being sent to one frequency. But the one interesting thing was it was 2 frames of lag on 240p, 480i, 480p, and 1080i, and 1 frame of lag with 720p.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I haven't had a Sony TV in my possession to really mess around with. I've heard with HDPT, you can get the high def pass through. You can get essentially no. I've heard you can get essentially no latency
on the Sonys. Really?
On the Sonys, yes.
Is the setting called HDPT?
It's like high def pass through or something. That's what HDPT. It might be in the service menu.
I didn't check the service menu.
It's mostly I've been kind of on that end. I've been really listening to what other people have been telling me about their menus and kind of passing it to people and bouncing stuff. I've never messed with a Sony HD set myself because what's interesting, most of what I play in 480p is Melee. If I'm playing 480p on a CRT, I'm doing that because I want no lag. And with Sony's, it's going to have lag. And there is the RetroTink stuff where you can run it on there using HDPT and scaling it beforehand, but it's
It's one of those things where if you get an HD CRT because you really want to play 480p content, you love movies, and oh, by the way, I also have a N64, running that through the RetroTink and adding scan lines will give you a pretty close to 240p look.
Yes, yes. But also because it's, if you're running is the RetroTink able to put the 480p and the 540p? Because you're either going to be, because if you're running it through the RetroTink, my understanding is if you're running it through the RetroTink for the HD CRT, right? Because you have to run it, you have to send it for HDPT, you have to either send it a 540p signal or a 480 or a 1080i.
Okay, interesting. So you would have to use the RetroTink 5X for the 540p.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So So HDPT only lets you do 1080i or 540p, I believe. So you're able to use the RetroTink. That's one of the cool features Mike added on it. You're able to scale stuff to 540p. So then it can HDPT through the Sony HD CRT. That's some letters.
Yeah. Now you know what it's like to be me every week with all these acronyms over and over and over.
So you can do high def pass through of the HD CRTs.
So this is the exact reason why I've never done a video on HD CRTs, because I'm okay in the Q&As giving general info, but I really want to do a deep dive on a bunch of different models, because there
Yes.
are a few that are zero latency in all modes, including 480i, even though
Yes.
it deinterlaces it to
Yes.
480p. But so I want to make sure to get all of my facts right and present it in one video. Like, here's the different types of HD CRTs. They're all good, but here's better for this, better for that, whatever.
My advice, it's really undocumented territory. Once I love in our last video, if you've ever gone back and watched it, there's the part where you tell me you found an HD CRT with no lag. You can see the exact moment an obsession like developed in my brain. And my brain just shut off, and I was like, what? It's so great. Like, and from then I started digging into it, and I found, okay, here's some. There's some models of it. So the thing is, everyone knows Sonys. Everyone's like, oh, Sony. It's all about the Sonys. But the Sonys have because the Sonys have the processing for everything but the models with HDPT when you're specifically, so it's like only under specific circumstances.
Yeah.
So, and if you're doing the retro tank, you have two choices. You're either scaling it to 540p, right? So you're taking a 480p image and scaling it to 540p and putting it on there, or you're either putting 480p in a 540p frame.
Okay, right.
So I don't know which he does, or if you can do both on that, but that's
think
the
you
way
can.
math works. Is those are your options.
I think you're able to go into the advanced settings and stretch or not for all those modes, but I mean, a lot of 480p content, you just don't need integer scaling at all. It doesn't ruin the look. It doesn't make things look off-centered or jaggy, or you don't get the shimmering.
Yeah, I haven't. And the thing is, I haven't seen it. So you are. It's the trade-offs of that. So you have. So it's just kind of a. There's no magic bullet. Currently is what I'm saying. It's like I'm not saying it's a bad way. It's really awesome because that's been able to like breathe new life into these. Like that's awesome. It's a really cool utility for that you wouldn't think of.
Absolutely, and I still need to go and find all of the models that I've never tested. And the one that I really want to look for, I guess there's two that, for my own personal collection, I'd love to find a 4x3 HD CRT that could do 480p, that it doesn't have a ton of lag. But I also want to test those old, like 40-inch Sonys with the DVI inputs, like 4x3. They're giant. I remember they were beautiful, but there were so many weird, like, I don't want to say rumors, maybe like, but just misinformation about them over the years. So I would love to get my hands on one of those, but they're like 300 pounds.
Yeah.
So I'd want to find somebody within driving distance that I could bring my equipment to and just plug everything into and not have to worry.
I would love for people to go out and buy time sleuths. I want everyone to get a time sleuth, and like anytime they see an HD CRT, be like, oh, I'm interested in looking at, I may be interested in buying it, and at least test if people are selling them, like, be like, hey, I'm not interested in buying this, but can I give you $20 and just let me mess around with it?
Yeah.
Like, I would love to like pool together, because I think that there's so much there's so many different ways to do it. You can either do dual scan. I've confirmed some are dual scan where they'll run 31 kilohertz or 33 kilohertz. I just saw a Zenith where I was telling you, did I tell you about the Zenith?
No.
I saw it was an HD Zenith, and it had two inputs, and one was labeled specifically for 480i, and one was specifically labeled for 1080i.
Oh, and there was no 480p.
No 480p, no 720p, and you had to send 1080i inputs to this one, and you had to send 480i inputs to that one.
I had a Luva TV where the component video inputs were 15 kilohertz only, and the VGA input could do 480p or 1080i, but not 720.
But this was two component inputs.
I've never seen that before. That's kind of nuts.
It's wacky.
That's one of those fun things where it's just like, Like I would love just a warehouse of all of these because I would
Yeah.
love to use it once
And
then
test it.
leave it on a shelf, and then every once in a while one of us will come up with the, hey, did you know that Zenith had another mode? Oh yeah, take it off the shelf, test it, put it back on the shelf. And,
Yeah. Yeah, because there's so many models of HD CRTs, and there's so many different. There's different, we don't know what all the different chassis do. So I would love to be able to test stuff. Like anytime I hear someone locally has one, I'm like, can I test this? Can I come over, just plug my time sleuth in and just see how it behaves? So if you switch it to a mode and then the lines go all blah, 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 then you got like one that's not compatible. So
That's awesome. So do you have any hints on what's coming next on your channel, or do you want to keep that a secret until there's a big reveal?
I've got a few projects in the works, like some I've got a few more Wii portables. I'd like to do videos on Wii portables, and then there's some other consoles that I like that I've got some odd ones, and then I've got a video or two that's different. Like I may like to do, because I've got a big pipeline and I never know what will come out of it and what won't.
Yeah.
And I could have some new project that's way better that just takes over. Like,
I mean, that's kind of the good thing about having all these projects is you could have a complete timeline, and then you get halfway through it and something else that you're really excited about happens. So make that video and then go back to the timeline and continue to make the other one. So
yeah, it's just a matter of it's just a matter of time between this. I've got I'm doing the 4-layer tech stuff.
Yep.
I'm doing I've got a day job as well to keep things afloat.
Yeah.
And then just trying to work hard. I'd like to, because right now most people don't know my entire workspace, storage, everything is a single room that is 9 feet by 11 feet. So that is editing space, filming space, workshop, storage, like everything is in that room. So
I know the feeling doing that stuff out of the New York City apartments. I certainly know the feeling. It's a challenge.
So I've been doing that there, and I've been living there for like several years. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna, once I graduate, I'll maybe buy a new place. And then I graduated in January of 2021. So anyone who's been looking at housing market stuff knows that.
Yeah. When I moved last year, I almost didn't. I was almost like, let's wait for things to die down, and it's way worse now even than it was last year. So yeah, good luck.
Yeah. So,
what's up with the 4-layer tech though? I almost forgot to ask you about that. Anything new products? Any new stock coming in? I know part shortage is brutal.
Yeah, part shortage has been brutal. We're stocking. We're working to restock. Most of our time's really been spent on redesigning products to keep things in stock. We have a few projects that we think are close. They're stuff that's a little different, but we think they'll be really, really popular.
Awesome.
But it's going to reach a new market of people that this is something that's been in development for maybe 2 years, and it's an idea I've had ideas we've been talking about. Some of us have been talking about since maybe 2017. So
I'm excited to see what you guys have coming.
Yeah. So it's I'm really excited about it though. I can't talk about. I need to run it by my business partner.
No pressure. I just I wanted to make sure if you had something to promote that we could promote it, and if you have something new in the pipeline, we'll let everybody know when that's ready.
Yeah, we've got just restocking the Ashita stuff. We've got restocking the Forever Pack because people really like those. So.
Yes, they certainly did.
Yeah.
So cool. Well, I mean, it's awesome to finally meet you in person. Thanks for coming. And
I've been having a blast. It's a good time.
Cool. All right, man. Well, we'll definitely check in. We'll let everybody know when the new products come out.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks, man. Nicole, great to see you again. This is very cool that you made it down. We met in person the first time at last year's Retro World, but it's these expos are crazy. You're running around, you're talking to a million people. We're having a conversation. People want to come up, and so it's it's always nice to find a little corner and be able to have a chat with people. So good to officially meet you and hang out and have a talk and everything.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I've been trying really hard to keep up with your blog. But my problem with your blog is that I'm really interested in it. So I never just want to skim through. I want to wait till I have time to actually read them. and it's just hard to find time to do anything
That's
these days.
that's fair.
Yeah, but you've been keeping the content coming. You've been doing awesome work.
Unfortunately, I was sick most of this month, so my content rate has gone down a bit, but I'm hoping to get that back up.
You look good. Hope you're feeling better and everything.
Thank you.
so.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better, thankfully.
Awesome.
I wouldn't have come down here if there was any.
Absolutely. So you are still working on a new game for the Master System, right?
Yeah, I'm going a completely different route. Like, Space Ava was all turn-based.
Mm-hmm.
This game is, I've been on a massive cave kick lately, so I decided to try to do kind of some of that bullet hell type stuff,
Nice.
which you don't usually see on these 8-bit systems.
No.
But the Master System, I'm pretty impressed with it as a system.
Yeah.
It has pretty good sprite capabilities. You can do a lot of editing of VRAM in while the screen is being drawn, which, as someone who did a lot of NES programming, is like, boom.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. How far along are you? Do you have like the levels in your head? Do you have the artwork, or are you still on the coding side?
It's pretty. I tend to do everything all at once in parts.
Okay.
So like I have, it's about. I want to do 9 levels because 9 is my favorite number. I try to incorporate 9 in things.
Okay.
And I've got about 5 right now.
Okay.
So it's,
Top-down shooter.
it's a
isometric.
vertical shooter.
Okay.
Kind of more about. I said I was playing a lot of cave, but it's like probably closer to Toho because there's less focus on like the backgrounds.
Okay, that makes
Because
sense.
that's the trade-off I made to get more bullets and enemies is the backgrounds.
Okay. And are you doing the audio and the music for it as well?
Yeah, I tried to reach out to some people, but I don't know. I have that whole, I got to do everything myself.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. It's your creative vision, it's your art, but it's also, it's a ton of work. So.
Yeah, like I wanted to do some FM music, and I just don't have time to compose for 2 sound chips.
Yeah, because it's not just like you're adding an extra layer. You would have to compose 2 sets of music
Right,
for
exactly.
each level.
The FM chip has completely different, rules of how it works.
Yeah.
So what I do have right now for the FM chip is it can play sound effects, so at least they don't interrupt the main track if you have the FM, which is something.
Okay.
It's like Space Ava. I tried to do something for all the add-ons.
I really liked that because it was one of those things where if you didn't have a super graphics, it's not like you couldn't play Space Ava, but if you did, you get the really cool background.
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
The thing. So yeah, that's a really neat way to implement it then.
And I also have some stuff where there's some dialogue scenes. And,
okay.
between levels, because there's 9 levels, but you won't play all 9 in a run. I'm doing like a branching path thing, kind of like I think Darius does that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and for that, I decided the character sprites will be double-sized sprites, which is only supported on some Master Systems.
Mm-hmm.
The Genesis doesn't support it at all. So if you have a Genesis, you get 1 sprite, and if you have the Master System, it will have some animation because I can have that extra.
So you were
VRAM.
able to program that in like intentionally.
Yeah.
Because I had heard about that, but it wasn't until your Game Gear blog entry that I put 2 and 2 together. Like, oh, that's right. The Master System 2 modes aren't available in Genesis, so that's why
Yeah.
some things don't work like
And the
that.
Master System 1 has the double-sized sprites, but 4 of them are broken.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that happened. But,
Yeah, I mean, Sega in the 80s. It was like the Wild West of video games, I guess. But
Yeah, the Game Gear supports everything.
So I was going to ask, now that you've messed with the Game Gear, are you going to do a Game Gear port of the game?
I'm really frustrated with myself from the game design perspective because what I did was it's a vertical shooter with, some stuff on the side of the screen with your score and whatnot. So you play the game in a box, and I made the box just a little too big to fit on the Game Gear screen. I'm like, if I had done that, if they were the same resolution, it would look a little weird on the Master System, I guess, but it would have been so easy to put it on the Game Gear.
That's funny.
But I think I might try to do something with that. Yeah.
I mean, at the very least, you could, you could just have it run in Master System mode or something and not have to worry about it. So
I know.
But
I was really amused by the Outrun Europa.
yeah, Yeah, I just never knew. I played that game a lot as a kid. I was never good at it, but I never knew I was playing a Master System game on my Game Gear. I just like it was a mind-blowing
The
thing.
other
to
one
me.
is one of the Mickey Mouse games, Land of Illusion, I think.
Castle of Illusion.
Castle of Illusion.
Yeah.
Yeah, is also, and I'm like, man.
So with these games, are you going to try to do a physical release as well? Are you going to have it made on a Master System cart?
So like, I would like to. The big problem I always run into with physical releases is that like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people would like to have asked me like, hey, I'd love a disc of Space Ava.
Yeah.
And I would, and like a disc is, you can get those mass produced still,
Yeah.
but
But I mean, I
just
think
haven't
that's
been
where the
able to find
community
them.
is a big help,
Yeah,
though. If
so
you
I've-
decide, like, okay, I definitely want to release a physical version, but it's a lot of work, you could pass it off to people.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I've
there's like
been,
one fly that's been attacking all of us that's been sitting here. But yeah, you could
You need a
definitely
cat in
pass
here.
it
I
over.
should've brought my
so.
cat.
Ooh,
Yeah, I got 2 kittens now.
ooh, sorry. I know that's weird. I messed up my back a couple years
Oh,
ago,
jeez.
and every once in a while, I don't have to leave this on camera just because it's so weird. Every once in a while, I'll be sitting and it'll pinch the nerve, and it'll feel like I'm getting tased in my leg, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Oh boy. Okay.
jeez.
Well, let me just take a quick break here. Sorry. Okay, cool. Not gonna sit in that position again. That was embarrassing and weird. I'm definitely leaving that in just because the person I like to make fun of the most is me. So. Whew. All right, back to physical releases.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's good people to pass it off to that you could trust if you
Yeah,
want to.
I've been talking to some people. Nothing has gone anywhere yet, but
Cool.
that would be nice because I don't know. The whole reason I got into making games for old systems is that it's so cool to have that cartridge or
Yeah.
disc.
Yeah, it just, some of them, like, when you hit that perfect combination, like, yes, the ROM is awesome, you get to play the game, everything's cool, but just, if you own a Master System, being able to open up that box, and I'm sure your artwork would be a little more than a black and white checker with a terribly,
Well, it's the
written
Master
stick
System,
figure.
so it has to be like.
Could be a little checkery, but taking out that cartridge, flipping it over to double check it's actually beveled so you're not destroying your system, plugging it in, like there's just something about that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just really cool. So, as a developer, that's gonna be badass as well. Like this is mine, I made it. Like,
Yeah, but the problem I have with the Aspect Star cartridges is that I'm like, all right, is this the day my soldering goes? Oh my God, I feel so bad. A friend of mine is an NES collector, so I made him a copy of Aspect Star for his collection, and it failed. It's something, I don't know, one of the connections went bad, I guess. So I went and redid it, and we're like, oh, well, we see each other pretty often. I took it back in like February of 2020. Took until earlier this year for me to get it back to him.
that happens. That's funny.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Oh well.
But yeah, so that would be cool. I also don't really know how. I have to look into like what's available for like the banking because that's I'm doing a lot more stuff with like performance, a lot more stuff with banking because Space Ava was all in C, so I didn't really have to deal with that low level stuff as often. This is all assembly.
Yeah, so my non-programmer understanding in this is programming in C is a little bit easier, but programming in assembly is more efficient, so you get more performance out of it. Is that
Yeah,
kinda...
I mean it's like with C, you're kind of always trusting the compiler to what it's going to do, and I'm really trying to push the performance angle of the game here, so I really wanted to make sure I knew what I was doing at each stage. It was doing. Now, of course, I've never written a big Z80 project before, so
Well,
am I
why not
actually
just
better
go
than
the
a
distance?
compiler? I don't know.
And for anybody that was unfamiliar with Space Ava, you're not reskinning an existing game. You're writing this.
Yeah.
I mean, you're developing the game from scratch. In your own vision. It's not. And I am absolutely not shitting on reskinned projects.
Oh, no.
I like a lot of those. A lot of them are great. But this is yours from scratch.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been really fun. And, I did JavaScript games for a while before that. That's what I do in my day job is JavaScript. So
JavaScript games or just
not
JavaScript?
games.
Okay, yeah.
Web apps.
Yeah, I'm sure that's fulfilling, but the games are probably a little
Games are
more
more fun, yeah.
Well, so I will obviously, as soon as there's a demo out or anything else, be promoting it. But if anybody wants to support you right now, you have a Patreon, but
Yeah.
you also post everything on your blog.
Yep.
So if somebody's not in a position to support, they could still get all of your content. But if they
Yeah.
are in a position to support, throw Nicole
Yeah,
a
you
boner,
know,
because
like-
this is,
On
you
the
put out some good
Patreon,
stuff.
I do like, give like a spoiler of what the upcoming post is, but I do try to do everything at the same time. I'm lucky enough to be in a situation where I have a day job that supports me. So if
Nice.
people don't have the ability to support, I still want them to.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to overstep my bounds here, but just I want to make sure that I know you put a lot of pressure on yourself to get content out. The people that support you don't care. They
Yeah.
support you because they know the work you do. They know your blog entries are great. So
You've seen all my apologetic posts. I
yeah,
guess.
like if you miss a week, it's fine. Everything's cool. We all get it. We don't think you're running away with our Patreon money. The life happens, and you don't just put up blog posts like, oh, this morning I had Cheerios for breakfast. Like you do some deep shit. So it's we appreciate the work that you put in. So don't put
thank
too much
you.
pressure on yourself. Keep them coming if you can, because we all like them. But just don't worry about it. You don't have to do one a week. You do it when you need to. So.
I'm doing one every other week right now. That's been pretty good, as long as I don't get sick.
Yeah. Well, take your vitamins. I brought extra ones here because we're gonna see people all over the planet.
Oh, yeah.
So we want to make sure to keep the. That was the one piece of advice that I give people that go to these is when I used to do CES every year for my previous job, I would get sick every time. Not just because of the lack of sleep, not just because of all I used to drink partying out there, but it's, if you have people from all over the planet, your little area that you live in, you're used to all the normal germs.
Yeah.
You'll get a sore throat one day and wake up fine the next day, but that germ that you've never been in your body before that came from across the planet, your body's like, what is this? Stop it. So take your vitamins,
Yeah.
so you get to stand in the sun a little bit, and so hopefully we can.
No, it's so
get
humid
through
here
it.
today, though.
Oh yeah. Well, at least stay by the window, but let's try to stay
Get
healthy
that vitamin
and
D
get through this.
somehow, right?
Cool. Well, thanks for doing this, and
Yeah.
we will definitely
I
check
hope
in again.
I got the microphone right.
Perfect. Cool.